And those of you that have just joined us for the very first time, we'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining. You are a CEO. You're running your business. So this is your first time. You're starting to run your business.
Yes, and thank you all for watching again. We know we got a lot of good feedback from last week. A lot of tools, a lot of information, and I'm sure some of you went away and used some of those tips that you learned about financial management. So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
So, question.
Okay.
What tips did you take away? Did you do any implementation in the week that passed?
Well, I told the audience that I was going to start a bank account, another bank account. So I'm working through that. So I like the way we talked about savings, focusing on what you need versus what you want.
Absolutely.
And then really diving deeper into what's really essential and what you value. So I've really been just taking a self-assessment.
Sure.
And saying, okay, let me look at everything I'm spending and really start to evaluate what's most essential.
Yeah.
And which things to cut out too.
No, that's true. I think one of my friends, she texted me afterwards and said she was going to relook at some of her essential bills too. She said about her gym membership, cable, because we were talking about, okay, so we need cable, but do we need 600 channels?
Exactly. Yes,
right?
yes,
So,
totally.
So for those of you that just joined us for the first time, if you happen to miss Financial Management Part 1, which was last week, Michael and team, it was a great show. We had Megan Tomasello and Charmaine Thompson from City First Loans and Realty and Loans was on the show last week. And then we also, so they spent some time talking about debt, credit, and loans.
Yes.
So a lot of good takeaways. I think they kind of brought out some things about, as you mentioned, Jacoby, having separate accounts for your essentials. They went into survival versus save versus wants.
Yes.
Remember that? That was really good.
Credit scores.
Yes, credit scores.
How to start working on improving your credit scores.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things, not just about personal finance, but even if you have a business, just different things to be prudent and how to really get yourself in a healthy cash position.
Perfect. I think it was a perfect show to start the year out. I think that we had a lot of comments that this was like right on time. Everyone relook at their budgets, their finances and things like that to kind of start off this year right and reevaluate things. And I think I actually I redid my budget and I went and I'll have to share something. I love getting a new planner every year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I really like to get a planner because it's just, I like having a planner so I can look, at the year. I plan out the year. So I do kind of quarter by quarter. So I went out and purchased my planner after the show and...
so you went right to action,
I went right to action.
So you more like a physical planner than something digital? You use both?
I use both.
Okay.
I do use both, but I like something about that tangible planner. But I've been using one for all of my life, so... And then my daughters have shown me different digital ones that I use as well. But sometimes, something about just quickly turning to the planner and looking at it real quick.
Yeah, no, that's good because if you don't see it, physically see it, sometimes it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
And I know myself personally, I use a lot of apps, but there's some things I do try to have physically visible along with that digital tool to help me kind of balance it too.
Yeah, I think I do the same. You're right, out of sight, out of mind. Because sometimes, you can look at your phone, but it's just, you have it readily available to you.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, like you take, when you're looking at finances, right? And I want to know what you all think out there. So, some people, if they have cash in their pockets, it burns a hole. And then for others, they might have cash and it's like, I'm not going to use this.
I heard that too.
So it's interesting like how we all look at money differently, or it's like someone might see a balance in their bank account and they just swipe away.
Right.
So I thought about that too, like how do you handle physical cash versus digital cash?
I think Michael and Tim talked about that too last week about relooking at your values.
Yeah.
And I think he used an example of purchasing a car. So remember he talked about you need a car, but do you need the car that could save you $0 throughout the whole year? Yeah. I think one was, I think the other was $1,500 and the other was $4,200. So, but he kind of, what I liked about the chart that he used was it was, is it dependable?
Yeah.
Is it performance, safety? So, you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, absolutely I need a vehicle, but do I need this vehicle?
Yes.
And then I think you also talked about some things that was really good, Jacoby. He's, I think along that same time, he talked about, what do you need to make you happy?
Yes.
And so that's how we spend our money, based on those things. I think you kind of mentioned that earlier. And then talked about those formidable years, 0 to 7. They talked about that last week, that whatever financial management looked like in your home, more than likely, I think he talked about, if you were never told no, or if you saw budgets and really, financial management as a child, probably you kind of carried those same traits in as an adult. So it was a lot of information.
It really made you think about like yourself and just like habits that you have, just your day to day.
Absolutely.
I like that it was very practical. And if you're just joining, this is the pre-show. So we're just getting you all warmed up, getting you ready, talking about last show from last week. Tonight is going to be Financial Management Part 2. So we have some more tips and some more information that you're going to love. But get ready. Get your notepad. Get a cup of water. Get a stable internet connection. We want you all to consume this information, and we want you to share it.
Absolutely.
If you love someone, tell someone. Share this information with them.
That's great.
You like that one?
I like that.
You love, but if you love someone, you share, right?
I love it.
And that's the best form of marketing, right? Word of mouth. When something impacts you, you want to just tell the world. So.
Well, really, and that's what You Are CEO is about,
yeah,
right?
For sure.
You Are CEO, for those of you that just joined us your first time, we want to welcome you again. But this is what this movement is about. You Are CEO. You run the business of you. We're changing lives, 1 week at a time. We're providing you with good content. And then, when you come inside the app, there's more inside. So if you haven't joined the club, be sure to get with whomever maybe sent you a link or shared the opportunity with you and talk to them about joining the club. You want to get on the inside for sure.
Yeah, and there's so much information. If you enjoy this content, You Are CEO, this is what we're about, empowering individuals to run the business of their own lives. So you're the CEO of whatever you want to do, your goals, your successes, even your failures. If you capitalize right on mistakes you've made, if you learn from it, it can become success for you. So we're learning about money management. I could tell you right now, I wish I knew some of these things when I was growing up. Like 2 hands. Because I was like, could somebody tell some of my family members to teach the kids the things that we are learning?
That's really true.
And sometimes you can have fear just because you just don't know. And so I think, it's kind of cliche when they say knowledge is power, but truly, if you use the right knowledge the right way, you can really gain a lot in your life.
Absolutely. No, I agree 1,000% with Jacoby, because I think Jalil, who was from our Baton Rouge office, was here last week, and I think she mentioned that as well, and that I wish that we had this information sooner, like you said, and things could have changed definitely in our lives. But now that we know, and I think you mentioned too, practical tools and tips, so you can begin to implement them right away. So if you didn't get a chance to watch last week's show, you want to be sure to watch that. After tonight's show, the two combine your financial management. I mean, we should be on a good path. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to it. I had to kind of read it, so I'll share again.
No, it's okay. Share on.
We're in the pre-show. We can share. Okay.
Yeah, welcome.
So I had to kind of rethink some of when I redid my budget, I was looking at my values, and I think Michael talked about you might have the means, but is it a good financial investment based upon what you say you value? So I had to be honest when I did my budget and kind of relook at some things that I wanted. But once I relooked at everything and I said, okay, well, I may be able to purchase this, but is this a good time to purchase it? And so that, to your point, was very powerful, because I had to just be honest and say, well, this might not be the best time. So then I had to delay that gratification, which we know sometimes is so hard to do.
Delayed gratification.
Oh, gosh, right? So we have Nick looking at us. Nick came with me the eye.
Thank you for that mic check, Nick. Thank you. We appreciate that mic check.
That's great. But it's true, right? So, and then when you as you mentioned, if you value this information and you share it with family members, it's true. These are some things that you can kind of sit down at your family or, your friends that maybe you're in college, and so you're trying to do your, budget on a stipend, if you will, or if you got a, new job. I think we had Generation I, so we had some millennials on that, they started working, and so this was perfect information when you're starting out your career, budget, base things there on your values versus, you may make good money. Oh, the other thing too, to go with that, there was another example. I can't remember their names, but there was in the commercial, there was a gentleman and a lady. They both made $40,000. Same job, same city, and you know, one had the better credit because they paid on time. They valued it.
Yes.
They value paying on time. They didn't max out their credit cards, and then the other person,
Yeah.
you know, was living very, a little differently. So you know, so we got a lot of good information.
Yeah.
But we are a few minutes to showtime, so we got a little something that Nick's giving us again. Thanks, Nick. And so if you haven't reached your destination, like we mentioned before, be sure to drive safely. It's going to be an excellent part 2. Combine the 2 shows together. I think it's going to be great. So,
and 2, if you actually watched the last show, and if you have more tips, maybe in other areas that you would like to hear about or that you know about, we're all about information that's very beneficial and information that will help our community. So please feel free to share, send things, post things in the CEO Success Club. We want to get your information. We want to get what you know. We want to get what you value and give us feedback. We love good feedback, and we love feedback that will make us improve. So please feel free. It's a 2-way communication.
Don't we always want to improve?
Yes.
I mean, we totally want to be better.
Right. Kaizen, right?
Kaizen.
Kaizen is a Japanese word.
Yes.
Japanese word stands for Kai, which is Kaizen is change for the better. Kai, I'm trying to figure which one is which.
Change.
Kai is change, and Zen is for the better.
Yes.
So when you put Kaizen together, we always try to use that philosophy. Mr. Michael E. Parker learned some tools in Japan about Japanese business philosophies, and Kaizen is one of them.
And Kaizen is one of them.
Yes.
So, with
I gotta brush up on my Japanese, my Kaizen,
Who said
Gitchigabutsu.
so?
Who said so?
If you haven't read the book,
yes,
Amazon.com, you can buy it. Michael E. Parker, author, Who Said So. You'll learn some more Japanese words in there.
Definitely.
So I think, too, the other thing, Jacoby, about last week that, what you just mentioned about feedback that we want from you all.
Okay.
I think that we're looking for some tips because we may be doing some health-related shows in the future. So if you have some tips on saving on groceries.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
sure.
you know, saving, if you have a, whether it's single or large family, some meal prep. Potentially, if you're in the CEO Success Club, one of our users in there did some meal prep. It looks great. If you haven't logged in, her name is Stephanie Gailey. Excellent meal prep. I was like, oh, I need to really do that. And
sometimes just doing that, taking that time to prep your meals, save you a lot of money, and you feel good because you know what's in your food too.
Yeah. So we're changing for the better here.
So we got about a minute to go for the pre-show. We want to welcome you all. And we want to make sure, if you can, share this link.
Yes.
We have Facebook, YouTube, even our URCO website. So we want to really just give you all the resources to share this with people that maybe don't know about URCO or people that's just learning about URCO. And the cool thing is there's not boundaries for the information that we're sharing. So a college student, high school student, someone who's wanting to better their family, better their career, a lot of this information can be universal.
Last week, a couple of key things.
Okay.
If you remember 2SE.
Yes.
And that was a good acronym. That was survival for those that didn't join us. That was survival, security, and then enjoyment.
Okay.
So we talked about that a little bit last week. And then we also, now this was what the show was opened with. Money is the power to have what you want and be who you already are.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah. So that was really
Yeah.
key, right? So you have the money, so this was the discussion. You have the money to do what you want, but it really exposes who you already are.
Yes.
Right? So then we went into a discussion about your values.
Yes.
So I think that's really good. So with that in mind, we want to keep, you know, you might have the money, you have a great job, millennials, you just, you know, landed the perfect starter job for your career, right? Or in college, right? So you got a scholarship and you want to budget that, right? With the help, you know, you may have your parents or maybe, you know, you're in college in the dorms by yourself. But this is going to be the show between the two, Jacoby. Like we said, if we had this information, but we have it now, but if we were you out there, if we were you out there, we were setting you up for success for sure.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
we want you all to make sure you get ready for tonight's show. This is a part 2, so this series, you can collect this and hold it in your archives. And anytime you talk about finances with your family or maybe with your friends, this is a resource you can point back to. So say, hey, I want to tell you about some ways to improve your credit, watch this video.
Absolutely.
So we really want you to use the material, and for tonight's show, interact with us, engage, comment, post some emojis, the smiley face and all of that. And it's going to be a great show.
It's going to be a great show. So we're at about 1 minute till, so we're going to go ahead and I think, Jacoby, are we ready for the show? Are you ready?
I'm ready if you're ready.
I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
Let's go.
Enjoy.
I've got to manage myself. I've got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but to higher heights I climb. I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. Yes, let the whole world know you are a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. Yes, let the whole world know. The time is here to celebrate. Success is calling, so don't be late. You are a CEO.
Hello everyone, Michael Lee Parker here at You Are a CEO, and we're looking forward to another great show. I hope your Monday is going well wherever you might find yourself, but we've been waiting for part 2 of financial management. And I know financial management is something that never gets old. We always are looking for ways to improve our finances. I hope you enjoyed our first show, and we talked a lot about the inward person. We talked about how we think. We talked about how life has impacted our perspective on money. We talked about many different elements. And so all of those things are a foundation to some of the things that we'll talk about today. And predominantly, we're going to be talking about how to actually begin to get to the details of how we manage our money. Now, I know when we talk about managing money, we always get concerned because it has to do with managing. We think about, what we have to do. We think about work, and it actually does take some work to stay on top of the things that are important to us. And so, companies have managers because they're trying to manage something that's important. And so we have to understand that sometimes the work that is required to do something that's important is not only good to do just for a company, but you have to be willing to do that for yourself. We have to be able to actually care about ourselves like we do the companies that we work for. We see that we have to do things for them. We're conscious of money when we work for them. But what about when you work for yourself? What about your own household? What about seeing yourself in that light? What about seeing your family in that light? And thinking about every decision that you make is a consequence, and it's either an investment or it's in something that can take away from you in the long run. So every decision we make, I want you to think about the fact that all of those things are critical. All of those things are important. None of those things can be set aside as something that doesn't matter. Now, a big thing that we talked about last time before we kind of walked through some key things that we're going to discuss tonight, we talked about how the fact that we have to manage ourselves. So we can't just manage money, we have to manage ourselves. In fact, that is probably the bigger issue. Money is, nothing without people. People is what actually dictate that money is important. People is what actually cause people to, aspire towards wanting money. So we want to understand that this is about managing ourselves. And when we manage ourselves, that's what will allow us to manage money. So having said that, just giving you a little backdrop, I want to walk you through a few things. And before I invite, I'm going to have someone who was on our first show, and Charmaine from City First Realty and Financial. We had a great talk with her and Megan. She's going to be coming back and joining me. We're going to have some fun here tonight. Then we're going to talk about some other things related to income and just different ways. And I have a special guest going to be coming talking to us about some things on that. So this is going to be a good show. So make sure you don't lose any time checking in to your screen and making sure you don't miss anything. So I like that. Checking into your screen, make sure you don't miss anything. I just kind of like how that came together. But anyway, let's. I want to remind you where you are today. As you can see on the screen, this is Financial Management Part 2, January 14th, and now we are entering in. And so this is again really critical. And we talked about last time that we were here. I just want to walk you through 2SE. You all should remember that. 2SE, we talked about survival and security. We need to focus on those things first. And then we talked about we all want to enjoy life. We have to spend money to enjoy some things that are important to us. And so all of those things are critical, but we started to talk about an order. We talked about a priority, making sure we take care of our survival and our security first before we start thinking about enjoyment. So this was another critical element to what we talked about last time. Now, something I want to introduce you to. So on this slide, remember we talked about security, survive, and enjoy, that there's priorities you can set. Some people focus on survive first, then security, then enjoy. Some focus on enjoyment first, then survival, then security. Some focus on survive, security, then enjoy. All of these different dynamics dictate how we live and where our ultimate destination might be financially. But we have to understand that there is a priority. Whether you realize it or not, you are living a priority. Whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, you're living a priority. So this is something to think about. So look at the scenario here. If we say our needs is 80% of our income, our wants is 10%, and savings is 10%. So this is an 80-10-10 type of rule. You have to think about, is that the type of life that you have? Is that how you live? Now remember, sometimes because our needs are so great and our income isn't high enough, a lot of our income might need to go to needs because of our situation. It's not because that's what we want to do or we want to give more money to our needs. It's just simply that's the situation we're in. The type of income I have, the majority has to go to things that I need. And that's just what it is. All right, but let's look at another scenario here. So here's a scenario where our needs are 60% and now our wants are 30 and our saving is 10. Now this could be another scenario, and this is what you want to look at when you look at your expenses is, what is your dynamic? Take the time to look at your expenses. We talked about need expenses and want expenses before, but take the time to relook at that and understand how your money is moving. So here's a 60-30-10 type of scenario. Now let's look at another arrangement where we have a 50% 30-20 scenario where 50% is going to our needs, 30% to our wants, and 20% to our savings. Now, this is actually a very good situation if you could get to this. Now, the 30% that we talked about for our wants and 20% to our savings doesn't necessarily mean that the wants is more important than our savings. It just could mean that 20% of savings is an acceptable priority for you as you think about your savings. So because of that, you can have 30% of your wants, but savings is still got a priority above your wants. So the percentage is not so much always the priority, because it determines it. You have to still look at what your goals are. How much do you want to save with respect to your income? Because it could be that 20% of your current income meets your savings goal, which allows you to use more for wants if you choose to. But those are all things that you have to consider and think about. All right, so we talked about these elements, and now I want to enter into another phase here about who is doing it right. And I'm going to invite Charmaine to come and join me on set here. And so we're going to talk about who is doing it right. And so all of you out there, I know when you think about yourself and are you doing it right? Now, Charmaine, first let me welcome you. You look fabulous. It's good to see you. Everyone. So we have Charmaine here with us. As you all know, she's a senior loan officer in our City First Realty and Financial Company. And so it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You did great last week, by the way. I had to bring you back. Yeah. So, but we want to talk about some things. And the question was, who is doing it right? So we're going to talk through some scenarios, okay? And the reason this is so important is because we can talk philosophically, we can talk about all these different things, but we know it gets real when you sit down and you look at your situation and you start trying to figure out, how do I make a plan? How do I think things through? And I think, Charmaine, that's something that you know, I've always liked about you is the part that sometimes people don't like to do. I think sometimes you kind of like to do is to sit down and get the numbers right.
My passion.
That's your passion. So how does it feel when, you know, when it's time to, or what would you say how important it is to be willing to take the time to sit down and just write things down about what's going on?
I think everyone owes it to themselves to do that, to make sure that you know where you stand. So if you don't sit down and look at it, you know, how can you fix it? So
Right.
that is definitely a passion of mine, and I'm glad that we're doing this show to help others, you know, take that in and really look at where they're at.
Now, let me ask you this, because I know, I mean, you've had senior accounting positions in my organizations. You've been a senior loan officer for some time. You used to work in a bank.
Yes.
So how often do you think it is that when people sit down and really look at where money is going, that they find out some surprises? I mean, how often do you, because I think sometimes people don't realize that you don't see things if you don't look for it, but when you look, you might find some things you didn't expect.
I think it's a big eye-opener to everyone, but unfortunately, just from what I've seen in my experience, people don't look at it enough, consistent enough, and really look at the details. How many people look at their bank statements? How many
Right.
people look at the activity and the different categories of where their spending is going?
Right, and I think too, Charmaine, you know, we kind of came up in a generation like right in between where it's the old school checkbooks and look at the bank statements to the new age with using apps and all of that. I mean, we can relate to both, but I think this new age that is more about technology and there's an app for that, you can kind of get used to not looking, you know, like people balancing a checkbook. I mean, people don't think that way as much anymore, but don't you, you know, what do you feel about that? Because I think that's impacting our culture about attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's when you have apps, you can kind of get lazy with it and not roll up your sleeves and put in the hard work that's necessary. So I do feel the old registers back in the day and, you know, subtracting out as you spent, there's something to that. And unfortunately, we do lose that. You know, a lot of times, different ones, people just kind of call and look and see what is their balance, and
Right.
they're not taking into account what may
point.
be pending
Right.
to come out, what checks may not have cleared. So, like I said, the consistency of sitting down, looking at it, and really understanding how you're spending is really important.
That's very well said, and like you said, just not getting lazy. So let's jump in. So we're gonna, this is a great opening to what we're about to do here. And so we're gonna go through some scenarios. And so the first scenario we're gonna go through is someone here named Tiffany. And so Tiffany is really, she's an individual that you can see, she has a 712 credit score. She's basically got all of her expenses laid out. And one of the things that I want want you all to notice out there is that Tiffany took the time to write out what was going on.
Yes.
So I think, Charmaine, we would agree that this is just great that Tiffany at least knows where her expenses are.
Yes.
So we see that she's making about $6,000 a month. And we've got our own little cheat screen up here so we can follow with Tiffany here too. But those of you that are out there, really look at what you see going on here with Tiffany. And what are some things that jump out to you when you look at some of these expenses, Charmaine?
Well, when I look at the expenses, she hasn't done anything outrageous. Her rent, everything is manageable. She didn't go over the top in her rent or, you know, her loan. It doesn't look like she has a decent, you know, a decent car, but not the most expensive maybe. The amount that she's spending on her food and household, it's reasonable. So everything here I see is very reasonable.
Nice, nice. And you know, and it's maybe it looks like either she's in college or still paying for her college. And those student loans are normally pretty good debt. You know,
Yes.
it's not bad debt. And a lot of even the credit groups look at it differently with student loans. But you also notice too that it doesn't seem like you said, that there's nothing just extreme on here.
Even the amount that she's spending on her enjoy spending, that's reasonable. It's
Right.
not over the top and outrageous. So
Very good. What do you think about her credit score?
Her credit score is great.
You like that credit
We like
score?
clients like that.
Okay. So that credit score is not too bad if you
No.
want to get some loans
Yes.
going, what have you.
We can help her.
Absolutely. So we're looking for you,
Yes.
Tiffany, to come on in. But so let's go back here and really look at what this is meaning then from a cash flow perspective. So when we look at in blue and we look in kind of orange there, some of these we could denote as maybe needs and some maybe as wants. And we could say that, you know, there's some on there that we just left for other people to decide. You know, is cable, you know, is that a need or a want? Is cell phone a need or a want? Some could say it used to be a want, now cell phones become a need. I mean, these are the hard questions that people need to ask themselves. You know, don't you think the dynamics are, I guess it's personal in terms of how people feel.
Yes, and even with cable, there's so many other ways that you can get TV, and it can be even less expensive than the $85 a month. The same with the cell phones. You can, you know, there's so many plans out there where a person doesn't have to spend a lot.
And a lot of people are doing that now.
Yes.
A lot of people are doing that. So we see people out there getting alternative forms of ways of getting their entertainment, their media, and like you said, getting creative with their cell phone plans and things of that sort. So when we look back at Tiffany, so the cash flow here that we can really see, she is cash flow positive, $1,880. So this, you know, this is great. And
Yes.
we talk about cash flow, and even though we talk about income and expenses and stuff, which is, you know, important, but really look at cash in, cash out. And then do you have cash flow? And so she has cash flow, and this is going to be over $22,000 a year. And so
Now, do the people understand what cash flow is?
well, let's talk about
Let's
it.
talk about it.
What you got to say about cash flow?
So when we look at the example, her income that she's bringing in versus what she's taking out. So she has less going out than she has going in. So she's cash flowing. She has left at the end of each month, if we look at this scenario as a month, $1,880.
Right. That's good. And the reason we call it cash flow, it's almost like a river that if I can move the barrier of expenses, the cash can flow to me.
Yes.
So just because, and I think it's, can you put the camera back on this one? I want to look at you all
Yes.
out there. Make sure you know, when people give you a paycheck, that doesn't mean you got the money.
Right.
Right? That's like, you know, water, and then your expenses is a sponge, and it just absorbs that money that people give you. And if you don't have enough of that, it never makes it to you. So that's what we want. We want cash to keep flowing throughout our life. Then it's like I really am a business because money is continually coming to me every month that I can really say is mine.
And that's what they say, living paycheck to paycheck. And that's what we're trying to help everyone learn, how not to have to live paycheck to paycheck or reduce. You know, a lot of times people, you have money coming in, but then the expenses, as soon as the money hits, it's going right back out.
Right.
So trying to find ways to keep as much money in as possible.
Absolutely. And then when you actually create a cash flow, you're creating a way for money to keep coming in.
Yes.
So that's very
You
important.
just build on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Tiffany's doing pretty good. Let's go back to our example here. Tiffany, we see she's doing pretty good. Now we're going to go over to Antonio. Now his credit score has dropped here a little bit, Charmaine. On the we're going to look at his expenses here in a minute. But how you feel about that $597? Can you,
That's
bit
going
more
to
work?
be some work.
a
Yes.
little bit more work?
We have to work with him.
All right. So, but we can work with Antonio.
But we can work with
We can
him.
work with Antonio. It's just going to be a little bit more work.
Yes.
And again, it's not no knock against you. It's just the way the game is played, right? And we talked about that last show about how credit scores and all this is kind of a game a little bit, and we have to learn how to play that game. So now, what do we notice about his expenses that we see here? What do you notice about his expenses?
Well, the first thing I always look at is those wants. So I see that he's spending $150 towards clothing, but then he has enjoy spending at $515. So compared to the other scenario, just even in what his wants are, he's spending more.
Right. So just his overall spending is more, and we can see he's got a total cash out of $6,090. And so, I mean, let's go on here to the next slide, because really we can see, looking at his needs and expenses, you know, what jumps out at you here, because we see his situation, he's cash flow negative, which gives him, you know, every year he's losing money as an individual.
Yes.
So what do you see here?
Well, when I look at the expenses, we see even the food and the household, so that it kind of goes back to last week. Where is he shopping?
Right.
You know, to where he's spending $600 a month, and is there ways, if I look at this, I would look to see, is there ways to reduce this?
Now, he could be eating out a lot, right? I want to look at y'all again on this one. Look at y'all again on this one. So here's the thing. So sometimes we can't see how much money we're spending on eating out, right? And actually cooking at home is actually more healthy as well. Whenever you take real food and make real things, that is always better than going out and eating different things that are processed and made by others. And that's for another show we have coming up this same month. I think our next show we're gonna be talking about health. But I just want to say, being conscious of how you're spending, right?
Yes.
And even, I know this, I'm gonna be careful here. Now but Starbucks. So,
Yeah.
Starbucks is a pretty, I
know,
understand.
Starbucks.
I know. There's some people out there, I know y'all in the comments right now, but Starbucks and being careful that you know how much money is going to certain things, because these things add up by the end of the month. What do you say about that?
It goes back to budgeting. So it's having a plan. If Starbucks is what you like, then we should budget for it. Really, it's listing those things and seeing, but it's where can you cut?
Right. And it's interesting about the word budget, because it's like the word budge is in there, which, like, you say don't budge, like don't keep your position. So it's almost like you need a budget and then don't budget. Make sure you stay within.
I like
that. You know, don't move it. Stay within it. It's like a financial plan. So let's go back.
And can we go? So one step further, even in the budget, is at the end of each month, I would look at the budget and then see what did you actually do. So that's another step to the budget, is reflecting and seeing, did you stay within your budget?
Right, and the whole point of a budget is to see where you might have budged.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then making a distinction to say, where does my behavior need to change?
Yes.
So budget has to be tied back to behavior. Very, very important. So let's go through another scenario here, and this is Marcel. Marcel got a suit on here now. Marcel, he got an 802 credit score.
Yes.
Now let's take a minute here, Marcel.
We gotta clap it up for Marcel.
Doing out there? Clap it up for Marcel. So how do you feel about the 802 credit score? Let me look at y'all out there. I want to make sure you understand 802. I think the credit score range goes from, what is it, to 850? So 802.
802.
Is this a pretty easy to get a loan for this person, you think?
Easy. They may not ask for too much of anything.
Right. So, I mean, they put some effort in. We talked about what it takes to get a good credit score. This person must have put some effort in. What's some of the things you think Marcel had to do to get that type of score?
Budget.
Okay.
And you can just see that he's just very responsible. He's not requiring a lot. But what I do see is that it looks like he's using his credit cards to pay for his bills. And most likely he's paying that off at the end of each month. And so, of course, a creditor would see that, and he's showing that he's a responsible spender.
Very good. Now let's go further into what you just said. So you see here, everyone, a lot of his needs look like there's no money being spent, right? But his credit card is a lot more. But it's obvious what Marcel is doing here. Now this is a trick that you can use, where you're using your credit card because of how the system is built to measure how well you manage revolving debt. You can get a double benefit when you show you really use your card but pay it off every month. Your credit score begins to really go up, your needs are covered, and now, even though you see all these zeros on here, where he would find his details is on his credit card statement, right?
Yes.
And how would he use that to stay on top of things? Well, his credit card statement, right?
Oh.
He would have to use that almost as his way of managing.
Yes, that's his statement.
Yeah, that's
his
where
statement.
he looks at, because back to what you were saying, if I'm gonna stay on my plan, now I'm managing my plan not from my bank account statement, I'm just using my credit card statement.
Yes. It's the same rule of thumb, but instead of using your bank statements, you're using your credit card statements to budget.
Right. Now, I believe our last, I forget the name, what was our name of, let me see, let me go back to Antonio. Antonio was spending $515 and Enjoy spending is $150 here. Now, you notice the expense here is $46.80. So it looks like, he has a little bit more expense than Tiffany did or what have you. But when we look at his overall situation, he's cash flow positive, about $1320. And so he's a little less cash flow positive than Tiffany was,
Right.
but he has a higher credit score,
Yes.
which means he actually has more opportunity than Tiffany,
Yes.
but he's also in a pretty good situation. So this is kind of an interesting dynamic that we see here.
Yes. And I would say it's probably even easier for him to manage just paying all his bills in that one place, if you can do that, just with the credit cards. So it shouldn't, he's going to one place to pay his bills.
Right.
Except for his rent or mortgage.
Absolutely. And you might have to work up to this, right?
Yes.
Because you might not have a credit card that can cover your expenses, and
Yes.
that's okay. And so then, keeping in mind, everyone, that this is something you can work up to. It's not something you have to do right away, but you want to know about these strategies. The biggest thing that bothers me about money and different things is just not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
It's like no direction. It's just living. But when you see and we have conversations like this, you can set goals like that. I want to get to a point where I'm doing this and doing that, and you start setting yourself up for it. I think Darrell Brown, who was on our last show, he said something really powerful about, you can't even plan until you have a goal.
Yes.
So these are some of the things that help you get a goal.
Yes.
So Charmaine, I want to look at some deeper things here. Let's go back here, and we talked about these three individuals, but I want to look at a little bit deeper with them. So Tiffany has a credit score, but now, Miss Former Banker, I want to look at their bank accounts.
Yes.
And Tiffany, she's got about $1,250 in a checking account, number one, $521 in her second checking account, and $5,260 in her savings. So what do you think?
Well, it looks like she obviously is putting money up each month. Probably some of the cash flow that she has in Savings One, she set something aside and is putting that up regularly.
Right, and we don't know what's going on in Tiffany's life. I mean, this might be fine for her situation. She can be single and, doing certain things and not have a lot of expense where she, this is enough money to handle her life at this time.
Right.
You don't know what is she aspiring to be, what's her next big opportunity, how is her income going to improve. So this is something to consider. Now let's look at Marcel. Now he has a credit score of 802. Now his bank accounts look like this. His checking account, his first checking account is $1,678, got another checking account with $789 in, but his savings account has $10,489 in it.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
He's responsible. Again, the 802 credit score is showing his responsibility, and it's reflected in his bank accounts.
So here again, we can see he's reflecting some good income there. Now let's go over to Antonio. Now his credit score is lower here, but let's look at his bank accounts. Now he's got $97 in his first checking account, $489 is his second checking account, but he's got $145,289 in his savings account. Now what do you say about Antonio?
Antonio is not paying his bills.
Okay. Okay, so he's probably in day-to-day living.
Yes.
Seems to be a less responsible.
Right.
But he did something.
Yes.
To get that type of savings.
Yes, he did.
Right. So this is something. Let me look at y'all again real quick. This isn't something that I want y'all to get here because cash flow is about responsible day-to-day living, but your bank account has to do with many other things because I could make some decisions that cause me to get lump sums of money. I could buy property, I could sell a property, I could get something was given to me from a family member, and that could be what is impacting Antonio's spending.
Yes.
He could be more careless because he has that money.
Yes.
So sometimes
true.
there's a relationship, and we want to show that. Sometimes when you have more money, you get less responsible. So if he was more responsible with having the savings, he would be in a very strong position.
I totally agree, and it's a good example for everyone online to see because just because you're making the money, it's what are you doing with the money?
Right.
And that's what that is reflecting is even though he's making a lot of money, he has a lot of money in his bank account, but he's not being responsible with paying his bills.
Right.
Which to us, most people, it's, ABC, 1, 2, 3. It's like very simple. It's basic. but to him, it's not.
Right, absolutely. And the question becomes, what is he going to do with that money? Because is his savings just a big bucket to spend out of because he manages his money poorly, or is he going to use that money to create more wealth? And we talked about that in our last show. When you get to the point where you're using money to make more money, that is the true where you're starting to create an engine for wealth creation. So, so this is pretty interesting. So I want to take Marcel for a minute, and let's say we brought him into City First, and we start talking to him about how to take his, because he's got an 802. Even though Antonio's doing good, let's say we're going to work with Marcel to try to do something more with his life. So let's look at this a little bit further. So here's a situation where Marcel, he's got an 802 credit score. What we recommend starting off, focus on your savings and your credit score. If you can start saving some money, and your credit score is a pretty good indicator of you at least having a good approach to keeping your debt under control, managing money responsibly. If your score is pretty high, there's a lot of different things you got to do. And so if you can focus just on those two things to get established, no matter what you have, that is a good starting point, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think that's a good basis for anyone to focus on.
So if the next phase, I think, after doing that is trying to think about buying something, because the way that the world is set up is the tax benefits go to the owners, because the people who have the money are owners. And a lot of times we're just in this world that, of wealthy people, and a lot of us are just working for them. So you change the game when you start to own something, because you start to benefit from the laws that were created for them, not us, but we can benefit from it to a point. And there's deeper parts of this game that we'll get into it another time, because they even own the banks that you got to get the loan to go and purchase for. So all of that's a part of the game too. But there's ways to keep growing in this. But let's go back to Marcel. So if Marcel,
can I add something really
please,
quick?
please.
And just to that
let's come
point,
back to Charmaine.
That point that you're making is, even when a person is paying rent, in the market that we're living in right now, a lot of people are paying the owner's mortgage. So it almost makes sense to set yourself up, if you're not owning, to try and get ready to own something.
Right.
A lot of the rents are mortgage payments now.
Right, absolutely. And that's the name of the game, is someone getting you to pay their rent.
Yes.
Right? And that's the key, so that wherever they got, and then some people, got you paying a little bit more than they rent. So they're creating a cash flow, right?
Yes.
So this is a great point. So let's go back here, and we see now, if Marcel started off and he could just get a condo, something that he could own, and here's a floor plan, and he came to City First and we helped him out and he got him a condo going. And so this is like step one. And we got a lot of people out there we try to work with. We're working on even more programs now to help people to get them from the point of just getting their savings and credit score together to actually qualifying where they can get something to help stop this tax drought and stop you from paying other people so much money.
Yes.
So start off with the condo here. So the next phase, Charmaine, is, if he handles this right and he's responsible with this, he could then move to get a duplex.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now we get Marcel trying to go to a duplex, and the beauty here, there's a possibility, if he's more thinking about money, he could live in one of them, rent out the other one, and have the renter paying his rent.
Yes.
Talk to me, Charmaine.
He doesn't have to pay anything. That's a beautiful situation. So yes, and that's optimal if a person doesn't mind living in a multi-unit. We do see a lot of people doing that nowadays, and it creates a positive cash flow for them. Like you said, they won't have to pay the mortgage, and the bills are basically being paid by the renters.
Right. Right.
And even in the condo situation, if they wanted to, they could sell the condo, take the proceeds, and buy the duplex. Or they could rent out the condo and then buy the duplex as well.
Right.
They could refinance.
Depending on their financial situation or what opportunities hit their life.
Yeah.
But again, just thinking differently about all of this is really important, because now, if you get your mind on how money works, some of these decisions are really good financially.
Yes.
But when you think emotionally, it can get in the way of that plan. But you have to think also about what's best for your life and the timing of these things. Sometimes our life is not ready to do certain things, but you should still have a goal. So let's go back to Marcel for a minute. Now, Marcel then went from the duplex, and now he's ready to get a fourplex.
Yes.
And I mean, he's probably in unit 4. That's a little bit bigger, maybe in unit 4, the larger unit. But those other 3 units, now those units come together to pay for his rent and create some cash flow. And he's actually created a wealth generating system for himself. This is the way we need to think. And so, you know, I think it's really important when we start thinking this way. Now we're trying to set our life up for long-term stability.
And I like the way that you're showing the phases. It's a phased approach, step by step by step. You know, everyone's situation is different. Like you said, it depends on you, your financial state, what you're comfortable with. But these are very great options for a person and in this environment, just the way that the world is and just how expensive everything is. You could really set yourself up to be comfortable.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is just a mindset that you want to think about where, and this is just one scenario looking at real estate, but we know that, you know, this is one. A lot of times our biggest expense is finding out where are we going to live. That's why we're attacking real estate, because, you know, it's normally one of the biggest expenses. And if you get to the point where your real estate decisions is paying your day-to-day bills, then your whole paycheck is almost savings.
You can keep
right?
it, yes.
You can keep it, and then you're growing, and then you use that to create more opportunities. Now, if you like the way we're talking, and some of you are already doing this and know about it, but there's a lot of us that still need help, or some of you are on this journey and you're about to take another step, feel free to reach out to us, and we can really help you with this. But even if you use someone else and you get out there and you find some responsible company that can work with you, get out there and take advantage of ways of managing your expenses and creating wealth engines for yourself. And so let me bring up, this is City First Realty and Financial. You can definitely reach out to us about this. But one thing I want to say, when you talk about these types of strategies, and we have strategies and programs to help people with this, and something that I want to really get across to you all out there. And let me look at y'all. I want to look at y'all again real quick. So here's something I want y'all to know. Now, you might look at this scenario and say, I'm not in a position to buy a condo. I can't do nothing right now, right? But if you focus on just doing the things you need to do to get yourself in a stable position, sometimes you can also partner with other people, and between the 2, 3, 4 of you, you could come up with a strategy to start this strategy as a team. Because you can't do it by yourself, but together with others who might have appropriate credit score and some money in the bank, you could at least get in the game and then start to grow from there, wouldn't you say?
I would say, and of course, someone that you trust. But yeah, that's a great plan because everyone, you may feel like you don't make enough, or you don't know where to start, and just getting like-minded people together, you know, like I said, that you trust. You all can create wealth for yourself together.
Right,
so,
absolutely, absolutely. So I hope you've enjoyed this. We've talked about spending, we've talked about wealth creation, we talked about all sorts of angles of this, looking at your savings, your wants, your needs. Charmaine, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job again.
Thank you.
And so we're gonna take a short CEO broadcast break, and we're gonna be right back. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about the income side and how things have changed. And there's a lot of different ways to look at how to create different ways of generating income for yourself. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. We'll be here on CEO TV. We'll be right back. You are a CEO is a belief. We believe simply that everyone is the CEO of their life. I've made a decision to be the CEO of my life. Before I was the CEO of companies, I was the CEO of my insecurities. Before I was the CEO of people, I had to be the CEO of my mindset.
If you got up every single day and did your best every day, where would you be?
When you start to continue to do that, now you start feeling a pressure to keep doing that. How did you handle that?
Well, it's amazing when I look back on it. I probably just got so used to it.
Always work hard, always make sure that you're improving yourself. And at the end of the day, be honest, always, and good things will come to you.
If we're looking for the optimal team member, these are some great things to look for. Looking for people who can be strategic, people that can execute, people that can work with teams, and people that know how to talk.
And the most important thing you're gonna have to say no to, ladies and gentlemen, are your emotions. A lot of times your feelings get in the way and you just don't wanna do it. And you have to do it anyway. So sometimes you gotta look at yourself and say no.
I think as an entrepreneur, you're gonna wear many hats and you're constantly evolving.
What passion is something that you are good at and something that you love.
Refuse to just get by. Do your best. Everything is excellence.
We're teaching them the foundation of their self-esteem by the way we talk about ourselves, you know.
Eat the foods that you love in a way where you can lose body fat and live diet-free for life.
Not only are you guys shedding the light on these particular subjects, you're giving me tools on how to deal with it.
We are getting into our fun stat time, interesting stats.
Interesting stats.
But I love the Jedi Master Yoda.
Oh my goodness. There you are. He has a Yoda voice.
Oh.
Customers have to drive our business. They are the real CEOs.
And you just should have invited her to You Are CEO.
Yeah.
That's what we would have told her, that you run the business of you. Yeah, she didn't fully know she was a CEO yet.
Hello, everyone. We're back here on COTV, and I've got Marcus Smith. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Pleasure to be here.
Such a pleasure to have you. Now, this is Marcus. He is our Senior Managing Director for URCO. I mean, everything to do with URCO's technology. I mean, he's been in the midst of it, as well as many other things in growing the business. And so, Marcus, it's a really pleasure to have you here on the show.
Pleasure being here.
You're always looking at how the market is changing. Mm-hmm. You're looking at what everyone's doing out there. And so I wanted to invite you on the show to personally talk a little bit about just how everything has changed, the history of how we got where we are today, because there's a lot of people out there, as we talk about financial management, they're looking at, how do I find new ways to make money? So you've been studying a lot out there. I don't want to, I just wanted to give him a little opening, but I really want to turn it over to him. So I'm going to step away. He's going to walk you through, and then I'm going to come back.
Okay, good.
And then we'll chat a little bit. But you're in for a treat, Marcus Smith. So I'm going to step out. Listen closely about new ways to make money.
So I want to thank Mr. Parker for letting me come on today. I do want to just say, on the beginning of the show, you learned a lot about how to manage your expenses, but I don't mean to sound a little cavalier, but they're all looking at it a little bit different. And I think in today's society, when you look at technology and the way that things have really changed the paradigm, or the way that people have been making income, is totally different. So I want to walk you through a little bit of a story mode. I want you to sit back, relax, close your eyes, but I want you to know at the end of this, we're going to talk about some ways that you can even diversify your income. So I want you to look at this image here. So you notice that people, if you lived in 1906, and people, if they wanted to work and they wanted to find an income, very stable job, you can go and start construction. So I like to know, all of you that are out there, when you're looking at your income, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about finding a new industry, a new avenue to, or a new way to make money? These people back then, when they wanted to find a consistent job, and if you look, some of them are even smiling, even though that they're high up in the air and, you know, there's some dangerous environments there. If you really look close, some of them are smiling, and that's because it's a consistent paycheck. It was something that happened in the modern day economy at that time that really allowed them to make some money. And that's what really I want to talk to you all a little bit about. And the culture during that time period, really starting even a little bit before that time period, was having a pension. So one of the first corporations that even gave a pension was American Express, and that was, of course, in the late 1800s. So if you look also, the requirement for that pension was if you worked at least 20 years of service, if you reached the age of 60, or if your boss even recommended or your manager recommended you for that retirement, you had money in the bank that was stored up. Also, the Internal Revenue Act of 1921 kind of growth hacked that a little bit, where a lot more people, they were feeling a little bit more comfortable about moving their employees over into a pension plan. And by the 1950s, we noticed that 10 million Americans, almost 25% of the private sector, began to join into that pension. So we had a large growth just between the late 20s all the way up to the 1950s. And then also, even in 1970, there was the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which built a little bit more confidence and understand if my pension was to fail, there was some kind of a safety net that was there. But I want you all to think about how that may have shifted the overall culture about an income. I often talk to my dad, and he always told me when I was even like in high school, as soon as you can, you got to get that pension. He has a little country accent, so he'd be like, Marcus, you got to get that pension. So that's what I always used to laugh at, because every time you go to someone, they working on that pension. So how many of you out there right now are working a single income, working to build up that pension? And that's kind of like the goal. But I want to just kind of change that. The paradigm has definitely shifted. If you really look at some of those companies, a lot of those companies was trying to get a product to a customer, and there was people that they had to hire to work to get that product to that customer, and that's called a supply chain. And through technology over the years, that supply chain has become flattened. Another thing that really impacted, and if you look at this picture here, that impacted a lot of people thinking about their income, was there was dual income. So how many of you all have a husband and a wife working toward to get some type of consolidated income? Well, back in the 1950s, this really became a standard where you saw this parent, this husband and wife, they began to, you see how both of them have their hands on their hip? They both had a unified effort toward accelerating the family, whether it's in real estate to find a place to live, or even just to find a new location or to even relocate. So you notice that a lot of that was happening historically. But that's another thing that changed the paradigm of the way people think about income. So I want you all to look at this. During that same time period, there were top market cap companies that we saw even during that same time period. So you see companies like U.S. Steel. I like to point out Standard Oil, and I'll mention that in a minute. But also you see from 1967, you see companies like IBM show up. You see a little more advancements in the technology, but then you start seeing a lot of oil and gasoline companies start to take place. And then also Sears. People are starting to buy stuff now. We got dual income. We got families that's making money. Everything is all gravy, and everybody is buying whatever they want to do, buying whatever they want. And it really impacted our mindset. And what I really feel is, and here at URC, what we've been really looking at, we went to this money and technology conference, and this guy said, and he was the CTO of Citibank, he said, no matter what you all believe, money and technology goes hand in hand. And he had like this little evil grin. He was like, it's all connected. So he was pointing out how all these banks, everything that you're doing from a bank account to a savings account, 401k, pension, all of that has been digitized and put onto your phone. And that's what is really important. I want you to look at there is how you can even see and view and manage your money, but also how do you make money. So I want to show you this one slide here. Now this is really getting into, again, the paradigm, how technology has shifted all industries. And they even start naming the industries by a 0.0. You hear about Web 0.0, Web 1.0, Web 2.0. Well, industries, they even label those the same way. And if you look at the little circular icon, you see how it represents different technology in that area. So in the industry 1.0, you have more like weaving looms or just steam-powered mechanical stuff. Then you look at 2.0, you start seeing mass production, again, to get that product to the customer. They start thinking about conveyor belts, and that was the innovations then. Then you begin to see the 3.0 industry where you have automation and then computers, and this is in the 60s, but think about today. So in today's society, now we have these physical systems and the Internet of Things, networks, so everything is a lot more connected. Some of the jobs have been squeezed out, so that person that may have grew up in the early 50s, their job may have been replaced, and now they don't have an income. So that really impacted the way people even think about pensions toward the end of course, in 1974 that I mentioned, all the way up to today, you see some jobs being phased out by technology. But what does that do about your cultural thinking about a pension? Well, that kind of shifted that thought and that idea. So one thing I want to talk about is a little bit of the ways that people have really started to combat that. And I like to look at it, I like to call it growth hacking. So I like to call it income growth hacking. So one example, for example, the teaching industry. Most people know that if you're a teacher, we see a lot of news reels and articles that talk about teachers being underserved and underpaid. They're working 8-hour days, and you'll look at the news and they'll say, pay our teachers, we need more income. Well, one thing those teachers have learned to do is take the technology, and we call it revolutionizing industries, or they even call it democratizing of technology. Those same educators, they began to take that whole supply chain using the 4.0 industry era, take those same things that they do in the classroom and put it all in a mobile phone. And this is a good example. In 2013, you had a company called Udemy. They began to tell everybody, like, what if all the experts decide to teach the next generation? Imagine how many lives will be changed. And then they said 2013 will be the year of the online instructor, not just the instructor, but the online instructor. And a lot of people that were teachers, that same example that we just showed, we had Tiffany, we had Antonio, we had Marcel. Well, what if Tiffany was a teacher? If she decided to make more of her income and try to diversify instead of just, trying to remove some of her expenses, she decided to, hey, I want to work as a teacher, but also decide to teach a class or do some tutoring online and diversify her income. What would that do in that scenario? Again, another industry that you may have noticed, the transportation industry. Let's say that the same person, Tiffany, decided to say, hey, when I'm on my way home, instead of doing my carpool, maybe I'll just turn on my Uber or my Lyft application and someone pay me, for a couple of hours, make some more income. There are people that are thinking like this, that are looking at different ways to make income. But if you go to any hotel you may see, or any airport, you may see these signs or these placards there, and you decide to, hey, I want to catch a ride, and you can catch your Uber or a Lyft. Another industry is DoorDash, or the restaurant industry. So the food and beverage industry has been, the paradigm has been shifted there, where you have people deciding to, deliver groceries, or deliver food for different areas. So let's say Tiffany at that night, she decided to go put on her red DoorDash t-shirt and make a couple of $100 just doing delivery. My point is that there are industries that are being democratized. Another one is Amazon. So when Tiffany goes home that night, she decides to spend 15 minutes a day and sell products online. And she may be selling tools that teachers use in class. She used that, put up a web page, or use her YouTube account or a Facebook account, post that every night, 15 minutes a day. But over time, that link began to create what we call passive income. So that income begins to come in. We have Amazon drivers, they're delivering those packages. And again, she has that whole supply chain, but not only that, she has all of that in her hand just by a mobile app. So the technology has kind of given these growth hacks that you can do to your income. One thing I want to show you though, how has that impacted the market cap companies over the years? So again, you see the U.S. Steel in 1970. In the 60s, you see companies such as IBM, but you also still see Standard Oil. And then in today's, if you go and look at your market cap companies, if you look at the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones, you're going to hear this term called the FANG stocks. So you see Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. What is happening? all these technology companies are becoming the top market cap companies. But the reason why and the power behind it is because people are using Facebook to connect to people, and they're using Amazon and tools like that to actually send out those links and make a passive income. So how do you do this? How do you get started? Well, first we just have to talk about changing your mindset. And again, you may think about one income, but maybe you want to think more of, instead of thinking about just cash flow for that income, think about not only just having one river, but 2 rivers and 3 rivers and streams. And not only that, there's something that's called the oil of the internet. So instead of just dealing with water, there's something that's down there that's more impactful. Just think about it. If you live during the time of Rockefeller, you wanted to go and find where's the next oil mine that's out there? Where's the next place that you can find those pockets of income? And there's a lot that is online, but we're gonna talk about that some other time. But I want you to really just change your mindset that there may be other ways that you can make income out there. I had a gentleman that I was talking to, he was a developer, and I used to talk to him online, and I noticed that his location would change. Well, I'll say, okay, where are you? I'm in China. And the next time he's in Canada. Next time he's in Sri Lanka. Next time he's in India or Israel. So I said, hey, what is it that you're doing, man? He was like, I'm a digital nomad. And I said, what is a digital nomad? And when I looked it up, you'll notice that there is a digital nomad movement, people who are thinking about, he was raised in Kansas, so people that are born in the US, they decide to move somewhere else that's cheaper, work completely online, diversify their income, and then just live wherever they want that is pleasing to them. I guess he wanted to travel the world, but you don't have to do that. But the key is that you want to find a way to kind of take charge or empower yourself and find a way to do what it is that you like to do. There may be a city or another state that you would like to kind of focus and relocate your family, but your job, you may have lost your job or something may have happened. You want to be ready. So just like in the stock market, how they talk about not putting all your eggs into one basket, well, you want to do the same thing on your income side. So we talk about doing it in real estate, but there's also other ways that are easy to do that. So I want to talk to you about this slide here. 5 ways to diversify your income. Now, these are ways that you can start at ground level to make sure that you're kind of changing your mindset, but also jumping right in into learning a way to diversify your income. Number 1, find a product that is easy to sell with the least amount of investment. So most of you may not know this, but there are different products that are out there that are looking for affiliates to go on and sign up and then begin to share that product. That's something that you can do with little to no investment. Another thing that you can do is offer a service. So find something that you can do part-time. Some of you may do teaching piano lessons and you may already have a way of offering that as a service. Why not start there? Another thing that you can do is create a product. Now, in the digital information age, there is something that's called an info product. So just like you have this camera here in front of me today, you can take this camera and you can begin to splice different courses and begin to upload it and then sell that. That's something that will make you some form of income. Number 4 is monetize your passion. Now, here's one that very few people know about, and that's why we're going through this in layers. But very few people don't know that if they go to a clearance or an outlet, a lot of women that love to shop, this is one thing I would like to mention to my wife, she's always loving to shop. There's outlets that are in the Midwest, then there's outlets that are in California. For example, if you shop in an outlet that is in California, the prices may be a little bit higher because the population is higher. But someone in the Midwest, they go to that same outlet, that same article of clothing, there's this app that you can do. The process is called retail arbitrage. So if you find a product that's like 50% discount, you can scan that product with Amazon's app, you can scan it, and you can quickly see how much someone is paying for it online. So you can make a profit that quick. This is becoming a revolution now among people that are in the Midwest. Even now, there's a lady that I see on YouTube, and she's basically scanning different products with her Amazon app, but instantly she's seeing how much people are willing to pay for it. Because Amazon closed that supply chain, she's able to take advantage of that. So that same blouse that she may see that is 40% off, someone in Texas or a bigger city may want to purchase it at a higher price. But that's instantly thinking different about even your expenses. And they're doing everything like that. Anything, any commodity, I see toys, anything. But that's one thing that I did want to share with you, turning that passion that you have into income. And last, monitoring your investments. Now, one area that I love to talk about is through technology, you're able to see your bank account, you're able to see your credit score and everything. But now you can even see any of your 401ks or your pension. It's good to even monitor that to see what happened. There are a lot of people that save money or even make money just by looking at their financial portfolio. Just by looking at it, when the market is getting ready to tank, there's computer dashboards that really show you the support levels and the resistance levels. You can go in there and say, before the market crash, I want to take all my stuff out, put it into bonds. You have the power to do that through all of your 401ks or whatever you have now, but most people just don't even monitor it to be able to see what their investments are doing. So a lot of times when the market crashes, you begin to notice that they're not doing anything about it, and you're the ones that's gonna get hit first. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. And last but not least, you are a CEO. What we do is we not only help you to empower you in your life, career, and business, but we also have a way that we don't want to just be superficial and tell you these tactics and things that you can do. We even have courses and trainings within here that within some of our club members that teach them to even empower themselves in some of these areas. So I do want to thank you all for being on this. And I know that I want to make sure that if you have any questions or comments that we're able to answer those. But I know that, I think Michael, he's somewhere around here. I know that he's on his way and he's going to jump in any moment. But,
No, Marcus, that was outstanding.
Thank you.
I mean, everything that he covered tonight was just mind-blowing. I mean, I know it opened your mind. I know, Marcus, the things that you said, people just don't understand and see all the time. And so I want you all to know, if you want more information like this, you want to come inside of URCO, you can hear more information like this from Marcus and others. And there's so much we can talk about tonight, Marcus. I mean, you opened up a whole nother world.
Yeah, each section we can just take out.
Yeah, you could drill down into each section. But this is really good because tonight we talked about expense, we talked about spending, we talked about wealth creation. Then we opened your mind to just different ways that today you can create new income. You can't say there's not a way to make some money because you just went over, I mean, so many different ways. And then in each of those areas, there's many different companies. So take this information, take it to heart. We're going to take a short break and we'll close out the show and tell you about our next show. But I hope you enjoyed this. And Marcus, really, you did an outstanding job. And I hope you all enjoyed what you heard tonight. This is opening our mind more and more about financial management today. We'll be right back.
Who would have thought the time would come that we would look at a mobile device over 100 times per day? Who would have thought that we would be spending more time on social media in a lifetime than all the time we spend eating, drinking, and doing laundry? Amazing. But you know what's even more amazing? All of the time we spend on social media and engaging our friends is making a select few billions of dollars. It's not the billionaires' fault, but hey, wouldn't you like to see a change? Think about it. Many years ago, a decision was made to let us use social media for free. Great deal, right? Wait a minute, hold your horses. What they forgot to tell us is that this model would be built on making us their silent workers to help their communities grow by bringing all of our friends and content to their platform. I guess it's not so bad though, because we've got to use some really cool technologies with all of our friends, and it hasn't cost us a penny. Here's the problem though. No one told us that some of the most intense algorithms ever built would be studying our every move and the behaviors of all of our friends to allow advertisers to constantly sell to us numerous times every single day. But an even bigger issue is the fact that all of the money being made from this multi-billion-dollar industry is not being shared with us. Something's wrong with this picture. We bring our friends, we bring our content, we help make these sites popular, and the companies get billions, not millions. And we get nothing. It's time for a change. What if we could reinvent this industry? What if we could start over and do things differently? What if you could earn money from things you're already doing every day? What if something we spend significant time on every day actually helped to pay a few bills or even generated a little wealth? Believe it or not, we figured out how to do this, and we're extremely excited. This all makes so much sense, and yet no one has been courageous enough to do it. This model will bring the biggest opportunity since Facebook, but the difference is, this time, it will be for all of us to benefit from financially. Interested yet? If you're watching this right now, you have an opportunity to benefit the most from what's coming. The possibilities are gonna be big, and the benefits will spread to our families and friends as well. It's completely free to register, and you have nothing to lose. After you register, you'll get more information about next steps. Register now. This all might sound too good to be true, but we actually haven't gotten to the best part of this whole social revolution. Think about this question. How does what you see and hear on social media impact you each day? Better yet, did you know what we see and hear on social media actually impacts how we think, which impacts how we feel, which ultimately influences what we do? Sometimes looking at our social feeds can feel like an emotional roller coaster. I mean, you can go from a heartwarming video to a discussion you wish you never saw, from something that inspires you to something that makes you afraid to go outside. What if we had a different social environment where we could constantly be inspired, uplifted, and motivated to live a more fulfilling life? An environment that lifts our spirits, reminds us to live life to the fullest, and inspires us to keep achieving our goals. Think about it. A new business model, a new social environment, all wrapped together to create a new opportunity. This social revolution is going to help make the world a better place. And this time, we can all make money. Just look around. If there was ever a time we needed to make positivity and uplifting moments more popular, it's right now. The movement has begun. Come and join us. It's officially time to live uplifted. Register now to secure your position in this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Those who register soonest will have the greatest opportunity to create wealth and benefit their friends and family the most. So click the button below to register. It's completely free to register, and you have nothing to lose. After you register, you'll get more information about next steps. Register now.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
I mean, Financial Management Part 2, Jacoby, again, once again.
Listen, we were getting raving reviews about this show. So we don't know what to do with ourselves. We're kind of excited right now.
We are so excited because it was, I mean, this was another power-packed show.
Yes,
so we started Financial Management Part 1, credit, debt, savings, survival, wants, you know, kind of recapped. This week, I think we did a pivot because we talked about, let's see here, I wrote a few things down. Okay.
2SE.
2SE. We talked about different scenarios. Who's doing it right?
Yeah, who's doing it right?
The 80-10-10, the 60-30.
Yes.
Right? We talked about those different scenarios. So about, you know, where your money is, your income, your savings, and then your wants. And then I love those scenarios with Marcel.
I think I want to be like Marcel. You know, Marcel's taking care of business.
Marcel's taking care of business. But this was really good because it really opened up my mind, Jacoby, when you say about, I think it was Alfonso, he had a large savings.
Yes.
But then his day-to-day wasn't the greatest, right? And then he didn't have the best credit score. But then Tiffany had she had a really good credit score. Charmaine, really good, you know, we can work with all of you if you're out there.
Yes.
But she had a really good credit score. She looked like she didn't, she didn't overspend. I think Charmaine really liked her scenario the best because she wasn't outrageous.
Yes.
And then Marcel, but he had an excellent credit score. And then his cash flow, he had generated some cash flow, which then led us into some real estate. So, Jacoby, I think we could probably talk about this just for a moment. Remember the .com and that whole big boom with the real estate? A lot of people took advantage of that and really did some of those scenarios that Michael and Charmaine talked about with purchasing a condo. So if you are, I think was mentioned, if you are, you know, either A, getting yourself set up with getting a good credit score, you know, making sure that your survival needs are taken care of because everyone's in a different place. So if you are just making sure that you maintain your survival and then you're going to move into some savings, you're at a great place. If you're the next person that's, you know, already has that together, your credit score is great, and now you want to move into purchasing a product, purchasing a real estate, you know, that's going to begin to generate some cash flow. And I think you could probably speak to that a little bit, Jacoby.
Well, I like what he said about your living expenses. If you could somehow try to find ways to be creative with that, like the duplex example, like if you're actually in one unit but then renting out the other unit, you can have all of your expenses being paid for I like the concept of just being smart, and I think Charmaine said just measuring things and being aware.
Yes,
so first, just knowing, looking at your bank statements.
Yeah, that was good.
I mean, there's so much good information that we learned today, and even just what Marcus talked about. That's a segment alone if you want to review that about different ways to generate income. In the world we live in today, it's very difficult to just have one income.
Sure.
Especially if it's only one income in the household. So we want you to make sure you all really share this information. We got a note from one of the team members that there was just great reviews, a lot of comments, a lot of likes, a lot of feedback. So we really appreciate you all for watching these shows, and we have so much more to give. We really want you all to please stay tuned to a lot of the content and re-look at these videos that you're seeing here.
Absolutely. I was going to say that. Marcus, to your point, Marcus's segment was, I mean, I think we could have had our own show.
Mind blown, right?
Completely. Because Marcus really did a great job. He took his time, took us back to, the pension era, which, everyone can probably relate to, maybe have grandparents or parents that they really did work day to day for their pension, and that was a goal that they wanted to reach. And then as time evolved, you had, your two-parent household. I really like that example that he used, that was, that was the goal, to purchase a home together. And then times changed, and then you had, single-parent households. And so now you kind of have a different scenario of maybe, kind of, I think Charmaine mentioned, some people living paycheck to paycheck because things, of course, the dynamics have changed. And now we're moving into technology, which Marcus we love to hear Marcus talk about it. But he moved into, Uber and Lyft and just these other ways to make some passive income. But I think one thing that with the real estate market, as well as with this Uber and Lyft, that I learned in the past, Jacoby, is to really think about these things as a business. So if you do that, so let's say, for example, if you're in a position to buy that duplex, and you do see it as your business, I like what you said, and I think Charmaine and Michael talked about that, making sure that you can purchase in an area that you can actually have the rent that's covered. Because depending upon the market that you live in, determines on, how much the purchase price is going to be for that property and things of that nature. And then if you're doing things like Uber and, Lyft and things like that, having a separate account, because that's a business. And some of those things you can, look at it as a business, and you can write those things off, talk to your tax preparer and see, how you can maybe, write some things off and maybe have more money when you come back, once you file your taxes in the year. So we just had a lot of information. So we're looking forward to, again, like Jacoby mentioned, this was great. Be sure to watch part 1, part 2. We set you up for any scenario that you're in, no matter where you are. You can take this information, share it, and we gave you some tips and tools to take you to the next step. So from financial manager, we're going to move into your health. Your health, and the name of the next show is Health is True Wealth. And we want you all to tune in to a very, very, very good subject. We're going off of looking at your finances, and now we're going to look into health, and we got a lot of different things to talk about. So we want you to get ready. You want to say anything about this before we close? Health? Let's see. Yes, I do. When we talk about health, what you call it? No, maybe I don't. Maybe we'll just wait till the next show. How about that? Let's get ready. So be there next Monday, and remember, you are a CEO. You run the business of you. Have a good night.